All right, good evening, everyone. This is the November 19th meeting of the Auburn School Buildings Committee. Just like to announce that the meeting is being recorded and ask if anybody else in the audience is recording it. Seeing none, so I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments tonight? Nope. Okay. Next item is the OPM report from Skanska.
All right, good evening. Dale Call with Skanska. Just to give you an update. As you probably know from the last meeting, we submitted 100% design development drawings to the state. They were submitted on October 23rd. Good news to report that Skanska's estimate, as well as AM Fogarty's, was under the budget, which we have. Fontaine here to. But we'll have Fontaine go over their estimate as well. If you remember, part of the CM procurement is once they're on board, they would actually take the same set of drawings and estimate. So again, I'll let them go through their numbers. The commissioning agent, WSP, has been assigned to the project. Again, just remind everyone, the commissioning agent is retained by the state. They're paid by the state. So I have talked to them, and they're going to be involved probably next month with us. We'll have a kickoff meeting on the pre-construction and all the commissioning. And basically what they're going to do is give us direction on how we're going to commission the building. Again, this is out in July of 2015. So they're on board. They're going to give us an itinerary of what they're going to look for. And again, they have Russo Bar as an envelope consultant. So again, what they're going to do is require that we test windows and roofing and all the, water, the air, the heating, the cooling. So the whole building's tested prior to occupying it. So, we did also, part of our requirement for the 100% DDs is receive comments back from WSP. Larry Bragano did receive them. They're reviewing them and all their consultants. And we also, the MSBA also on Friday received comments back from them. So basically, we have another submission coming up, believe it or not. This is the process we go through. That color sheet that I handed out has the budget. So basically what we're doing, that budget doesn't move. As we go through these submissions, we're just checks and balances to make sure we're under budget, the scope creep, there was none. Basically, they just want us to make sure that we're on task throughout this whole entire process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what's WSP, please?
It's just initials of a commissioning agent. They're I don't think it stands for anything, as far as I know.
State?
Excuse me?
State?
No, it's a company.
It's a yeah,
Yeah, it's a
private
company. Yeah, I think it's just WSP. And, I reached out to them. Again, they have sub-consultants under them. So again, Russo Bar, who I personally worked with on probably 6 different projects, they're an envelope consultant. So again, this is all by the state. And then, basically they're going to go through all the submittals and everything with Fontaine and us. And as we go through the whole process, they'll have field inspections. And they're going to give us, which I'll share with this committee, their outline of what they're tasked to do for this. So,
Thank you.
So any questions on any of that? The next line item is the contract status with Fontaine. Today, actually, I received comments back from the town's council. There's one question I had, so I had to send it back. So we're hoping that hopefully this week we'll have that finalized and back to Fontaine. There's nothing in there that I don't think we're going to work through. They did receive the NTP as a notice to proceed. So when you guys approved them to move forward, about 3 weeks or so ago, we authorized them to start again what they're going to show tonight. We're working on budgeting, scheduling, community outreach, and I'll let them go through all that in detail. So they have been working on this. MSBA 60% CDs, it's due on December 20th. Leonard Pagano is going to issue the drawings on December 13th. So again, I believe they're going to have a set of drawings here, so if anybody wants to look at them or go through the FTP, electronic way through the website, you'll be able to look at them. So all the comments received from WSP, MSBA, all those will be incorporated into the next set. And these are 60% construction documents. I believe we're going to have a meeting on December 17th, and what we'd like to do is, Leonard Pagano again is going to go through the scope of work, show there's more details, more finishes, and show the status. The estimate will not be done on that date. However, we are allowed by the MSBA now that we have a CM, 21 days after we can still submit the estimate. So what we're going to recommend is on January 7th, which we would recommend having a meeting, which is a Tuesday, one of the agenda items is go through the budget. So we'll take the budget, which you see on that level, that sheet, the far left-hand corner, that's your budget. We'll look at Fontaine's updated estimate, because they're going to update it again. AM Fogarty through Laren Pagano will provide another estimate, and Skanska will provide one. So you're going to have 3 different companies looking at it. And right now, we're under the budget, just the overall budget. So it's good news, and again, we'll keep updating it. So on January 7th, we'll look for this committee to go ahead and approve us to submit the budget. I did ask the MSBA if we could take the 20th submission date and move to the 10th. I haven't heard back from them, so I would recommend we just stay with the 20th. There's no penalty. We'll submit the plans and the specs and everything, and then the estimate will follow. Anyone okay with that? The next agenda item, pre-qualification committee. Basically, what this is we need volunteers again, and what we're going to do is the architect and the CM are required to be on a subcommittee, and 2 representatives from the district. Typically, the OPM's one of them, so we're looking for 1, maybe 2 volunteers. And basically, what we're going to do is take all the subcontractor submittals and pre-qualify them. So again, what I listed here, they need 70 or more points to be qualified. So you can see experience, there's 50 points, references 30, capacity to complete, they may be qualified, but they have so much work, they just don't have the people to do it. So what we're going to do is go through and pre-qualify. Once they're pre-qualified, when the drawing specs go out, then they can provide pricing, down the stream. So again, I would think probably in January, we're probably going to, start that. And again, we have all the spreadsheets. We'll sit down, see them. Same thing we did the CM. We'll give everybody, whoever volunteers, the roadmap on how to do it. And this is for all the subcontractors. So we'll eventually look for somebody to volunteer. The only other thing too, it's lower down on there, the ad alternates. Again, Fontaine, they put their cost estimate together. Just remind everyone, we have 2 ad alternates. One is the turf field, and again, historically has not been reimbursable by the state. So when we look at the pricing, I am checking with them, but I don't think anything's changed. So that is, if you decide to go forward with the turf, it'll be 100% your cost. The other one's geothermal wells. That's another decision. We don't have to make them now, but just down the road. And historically, that has been reimbursable. And again, I'm going to confirm with the MSBA to see if anything's changed. So again, we don't have to make those choices, but those 2 numbers are over our budget right now. We received Fontaine's estimate this morning, which he's going to hand out and walk through it with you guys. So that's, any questions on any of that? Good.
Okay, thank you. Next item is Lambert Pagano's report for tonight.
Good evening, Eric Moore from Lamoureux Pagano. We've had a number of meetings over the last few weeks. We started out with the planning board meeting. That has been continued to December 10th at 7:15 p.m. First 2 items have to do with reimbursable costs. As part of the process for site plan approval, the planning board has an independent review of our documents by, in this case, Graves Engineering. So they ask for a peer review deposit of $1,500, and they also require 10 sets of drawings. And these are considered reimbursable costs for the MSBA contract that we use. So those are the first 2 items. The third item, one of the things that came out of the meeting was a concern by the planning board with the amount of traffic on West Street, and they've asked for a traffic study peer review. And we received a proposal just today from Adam Burney, which I will pass around, for $6,000 to have DHC, a traffic engineer company, basically do a review of the traffic study that was done by our consultant, Niche Engineering. So I think that also falls under the definition of additional services, and we would ask that I think that you vote on that tonight, so that can proceed. And
Might as well go through everything first, and then we'll
sure,
take up.
we can come back.
Yep.
to that. Second meeting we had was a meeting regarding the type of phone system. This is part of, the phone system is part of FF&E, that stands for Fixtures, Furnishings, and Equipment, and also Technology. And it's a system that it'll be part of it's part of our scope, it's part of our work, but it won't be provided by Fontaine Brothers. It'll be procured separately toward the end of the project, and it's something that can be bid on the state bid list, put out competitively for proposals. In this case, we've looked at two options. One is a Mitel system. That's what you have at the high school now, and that would provide some interconnectivity. We could do some upgrades at the high school, basically have that capability for those two systems to talk to each other. It would also you'd have the same vendor for both high school and middle school. The other option is an Avaya system. You've recently installed that system in, I think, 9 of your town buildings, although none of them are schools. They're both voice over IP systems. Both will serve the purpose. And so what we've asked is for both of those vendors to submit some preliminary proposals and see who's the most competitive in this case. We also had some discussions at that meeting about how with the town IT department regarding the fiber optic connection at this proposed school. Right now you have fiber optic into this building and a data closet in the front. Without getting into a lot of detail, there was some concern about tying into that location. What if this building at some point in the future is demolished? So the current recommendation is to bring the fiber optic out to West Street, splice into the fiber at that point. Conservation Commission, we met last week with the Conservation Commission meeting. That has also been continued to December 11th at 7:45 p.m. Without getting into too much detail here, because we're close to the Auburn Water District's wells, we had a request from the Water District in regards to the design of the drainage, the site drainage. There was a request to separate the water that was coming off the roof, which is relatively clean, and that would be infiltrated back into the ground, from the water that is being taken off of parking surfaces, which has oils and greases and that sort of thing. It's all treated, but the request was not to infiltrate the grease-laden surface runoff back into the ground and potentially into the well. So we tried to do that. To make a long story short, we could not meet DEP guidelines. We were just missing their guidelines with a 10-year storm and substantially off with a 100-year storm. DEP said, no, we won't accept that. So we're in the process now of going to a recharge system for the entire system. And we'll submit, we are in the process of submitting revised drawings to Conservation Commission and DEP. We have DEP's initial comments and also Graves Engineering comments, and we'll be addressing those as well. Green Building, we've talked about the Mass Chips effort, and I think earlier we had a design charrette where we talked about how we were going to achieve the Mass Chips compliance, which you remember we get extra reimbursement from the state. Our goal is to get 50 points. So previously we had 58 points, yes, 29 points maybe. So we were definitely, in the direction to meet the 50 required points. We are still we've gone down slightly on the yes from 58 to 56 yes votes. We're still in almost 30 maybe items, but we are still confident we'll meet the 50 points required there. The last item I have to report on is the structural peer review. MSBA, as part of the 90% submission, requires that we advance the structural drawings to 100% and have a structural peer review performed if the building is over 10,000 square feet, which obviously in this case we are. I bring it up tonight because we're required to advise you of that fact in writing, and you'll be seeing that shortly. I believe Dale has spoken to a number of structural engineers who typically perform that sort of service, and will be obtaining some proposals there. Are there any questions?
On the recharge system, is that going to increase the cost of the building? To do
No,
that
it's-
system, or?
No, it's been designed that way from the get-go. It's always, we're not allowed, I should say, to have surface detention areas. You see them frequently, they're fenced in usually. In this case, the entire drainage detention systems, I should say, are underground and service. They're either pipe systems with infiltration, or in the case of the one that's serving the roof, it'll still have some infiltration, but for a large part of it, it has the capacity to hold quite a bit more water, and it'll have an overflow into.
What was the big problem about catching the water off of the roof and trying to get that back into?
DEP's issue?
Yeah.
Their issue was, we can't exceed the rate of runoff. The post-development rate of runoff can't exceed the pre-development rate of runoff. So when you create more impervious surfaces, the water comes off more quickly, and they would not allow that to increase.
The other question I had was there a traffic study done before?
There was a traffic study done. You may remember that during the schematic design phase,
Yeah.
we consulted with Niche Engineering. They did the site survey. They also did the traffic study. They had our design at that point. They made a number of recommendations. So we're interested to see what, I think this is a check on the part of the planning board to verify that the due diligence.
Is that typical in a building situation that they kind
I wouldn't say
of
it's
check and
typical.
balance?
I wouldn't say it's typical.
It was coming from the planning board. There were, a couple members were pushing for a whole new independent traffic study. They don't have the funding for it, so they were going back to the peer review. There's a peer review on the whole site plan. That's the Graves Engineering, so they're kind of going on the same type of a thing. It's at the will of the board.
No, I understand that.
Of asking for us.
That's what I'm kind of getting at is, is there a reason for this peer review? Number two is, did they check with a couple different companies, or we just got the one company that they want to go with? Or, since this project is paying for that, isn't there some sort of a process to
Well, I think, Mr.
get some
Chairman,
other
that
quotes?
question can't be asked of him. It's asked of Adam,
I can't speak.
Adam Bruni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't speak to the process they went through. Both Niche and VHB are very well-respected traffic engineering firms, capability. We've used both of them ourselves. I honestly don't know what
The
the
number is
process
under
was.
the radar for bidding.
I'm just kind of curious why
But it's addressed to Adam Burney, so he's perhaps
I
the one.
understand his due diligence with extra scrutiny is.
The review has already been done
No,
prior to this.
Traffic review.
They're asking for another to be done?
the whole conversation came out, last week, the whole conversation was around, there was a push to have an independent traffic study done. The full counting and everything else was already done by Niche that, came out and spent time at the school, counting buses, cars, the whole thing, and then down at this site. All that raw data is all part of Niche's report and stuff, so finally came back around that, they take all that raw data, go out to another engineer of their picking, choosing, and
Oh, we'll just put it on their nickel.
It's not on their nickel. Unfortunately, the peer reviews are not, they're on the applicant's nickel. So,
Mr. Chairman, on that same subject, because it's always been a concern of mine since we've come down here. I've been down here several times, and sometimes those heavy tractor trailers that come down here, they seem to be very heavy. So when we talk about a traffic study, are we talking about the size of vehicles and stuff like that? I came down here a couple of times, just sat here, and one time there had to be about 6 in a row, big ones, coming down around 2 o'clock. I'm saying, boy, if this school was trying to get out of here at that time with all those things coming down there. My thought was, let's find a new route for those tractor trailers somehow or other. So just get it off that road. But anyhow, the question is, as far as traffic studies, do they take that into consideration?
They do. They take all those factors, the width of the roads, the types of vehicles, the speed, the time of day. They take actual traffic counts. You may have seen them out here with setting up the instruments and that sort of thing. But that is all taken into account. My sense is the planning board has a concern that, that you could potentially build this new facility and then have traffic issues out on West Street,
Right.
out between the entrance of the school out to the intersection. And if there's an issue to be dealt with, my sense is they want to deal with it now rather than
Sure.
later.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure, to Mr. Chairman. I had 2 questions. One was the recharge. It's not going to be an additional cost. The other one, if we remain under budget, can we utilize those savings towards the turf and the geothermal?
Dale, do you want to address that?
I know one's a reimbursement, one isn't. Is that?
Yeah, basically what will happen is, Fontaine will go through the process, and once we have a GMP with them, that's when the budget's finally, hopefully, will be reduced down to their bid amount. But basically what they'll do is all the line items will be reduced down to the bid amount, and then they give us 5% for construction contingency. So what will happen if we have any costs over on the alternates, that cost most likely will be 100%, the town's portion of that overrun, if you will. So say hypothetically, if we go out to bid, the turf field comes in at $500,000, 100% of that most likely will be the town's cost. We budget X amount for the geothermal, and it comes in over 40,000 over, that difference of the 40 grand will be by the town. You can't move monies around within the 30, or within the budget line item.
So if we save $100,000,
They take it back.
They'll take it back. We can't
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
and you got to remember that if that spreadsheet that was done with the funding agreements and stuff, there's all these formulas on the side. Site work is they only participate on 8% of the total construction costs, and then after that it's 100%. So turf field is in the site work, so we're well beyond the 8%. So no matter where that comes in, now on the overall budget, it's all to the town anyway. But so it's just that cost is no reimbursement out of that part, whatever that value is. So while you're saving on the whole thing, it's just some of the reimbursement from the town or from the state may be going down, but we're not getting it all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Just one additional follow-up question. The turf field obviously could go later into the project. Would a decision?
Well, actually, it's interesting you mention that. One of the things about the turf field is it's very porous. It lets water through very quickly. And because of that, if we have that multi-use field as a synthetic field, we have to design the drainage system to accommodate that.
Because I guess my biggest question was on the wells, the geothermal wells. Is that something that has to be decided on sooner, or really everything at the same time?
Well, we had always planned to plan these as add alternates, so we would show both conditions. We would show the base bid condition and the add alternate condition, so that you actually see both prices. It's bid out that way, so that we'll talk a little bit later on about the early packages that we're planning to put out, but the synthetic turf field would be part of that early site package. We would know very early on what the cost is for that.
That's what I was really getting at, is there kind of a cutoff date that you would have to make a yes or no decision to?
Dale, would that be GMP time?
Yeah.
For the Alta, because everything's going to be bid out by that point, and
Okay.
that's going to be part of those bids, I would assume.
Yeah, and I would recommend too with Fontaine, let them make a decision by this date if you want to go down the road with either one of them.
Okay.
Because again, we don't want to install something and take it back out.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mike, Mr. Chairman. Structural peer review, do you have any costings on that? And could you go a little more in depth as to why we would need a structural peer review?
MSBA specifically requires a peer review.
Are they gonna pick up the tab for it?
I don't.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is
Yeah.
parts in the building code that when you get over certain sizes and types of buildings and stuff that they require it anyway, so.
Any
it's not-
handle on the cost of that?
I used to say, years ago, about $10,000 to $12,000. I would expect it would be more than that today. I don't know, Dale, if you have a feel.
Is that anywhere?
One of the vendors that we've worked with, it's a sole proprietor, this is all he does. So that's one person we're going to receive a quote from, as opposed to like a whole structural engineering company that has overhead. We've successfully worked with this, it's one guy. He's very good.
Would that be in contingencies here, or do we have anything figured in the budget?
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right.
There's actually a line item in the total project.
Again,
budget for
MSBA
structural
requires,
peer
and I think
review.
it is required by code now.
Thank you.
All right. So, I think before we go on to the next items, then, the site peer review, the $1,500, and the traffic study peer review, or what you're looking for approval to spend, is that?
We've actually already received approval on the peer review deposit.
Okay.
And the 10 sets of drawings, which was, I think, $133. But I think what we're looking for a vote on is, am I correct, Dale, on that?
Second?
Do we actually need a vote on the deposit of $1,500 and the drawings?
You should, it's reimbursable cost.
All right, so those are two reimbursed, if you want to make it all one vote. That's, so it would be $1,500 for the peer review deposit, $132.96 for the 10 sets of drawings, which planning board and Concom required, and the $6,000 for the traffic peer review.
You want to make a motion, Mr. Chairman? I'll make a
Certainly.
motion that we authorize $1,500 for site peer review and $6,000 for traffic engineering peer review.
Let's keep them, yeah, we got to do the
So
plans.
you want to separate it?
Yeah, we'll do the the peer review, the site peer review and the plans for 132.96, you said?
Correct.
So it'd be 1832.96, if I'm right? No, 1632.96. Hello.
All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize $1,500 for site peer review plan.
And the drawings. Put them together, you can put the drawings together with that.
$32.96 for the
All
price.
right, yeah, that.
Second.
Any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next one is the entertain a motion on the traffic study peer review.
I'll make a motion that we authorize to spend $6,000 for a traffic engineering peer review by Vanessa Hagen Brusselin.
Vanessa Hagen Brusselin, yeah.
Incorporated.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? To vote. All right.
Because I believe Eric received this.
I received it, Lamro Pagano can cut a check to the town to get that going.
So you'll just,
We'll take care of it.
Okay. And it'll show up on his next month's invoice. All right, next item is our update from our new construction manager, Fontaine Brothers. Dale, do you want to introduce whoever's here, or?
yeah, sure. So Dave Fontaine Senior, Dave Fontaine Junior, and Chris Fontaine. And Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
Dave Fontaine Jr. is handing out a estimate summary sheet, which you'll soon all have, that shows our estimate based upon Lamro Pagano's drawings. Thank you, sir. We can go by, basically, the building cost is $24,909,690.
There's one more coming.
It's the top line. Site work is $3,852,850 for a total direct construction cost of $28,762,540. Those do not include the alternates, which you'll see at the bottom of the sheet, which are the geothermal heating system and the synthetic turf. On top of the direct construction cost, we have identified a construction contingency of 3%, a design contingency of 5%, and an escalation contingency of 2.5%, which totals another $3,020,067. The general conditions, insurance, and bonding, that is was part of our proposal to you. As all said and done, the only thing that you will see that is in addition to the general conditions, insurance, and bonding is there's an item there called subcontractor bonding, which would be the cost for all of your filed subcontractors' bond costs as an estimate, as well as some selective other subcontractors that would be bonded on the project. You work through basically all the numbers at our fee, you end up with a total base bid budget summary of $35,302,357. On top of that, if you elect to do the alternates, you are looking at $633,000 approximately for the geothermal heating system and $693,000 plus for the synthetic turf field system. One of the things that we have talked about, or we talked about previously, was early bid packages. If you'll notice, there is an escalation contingency of about 2.5%. That is based upon the direct construction cost. One of the benefits of doing the early bid packages that we'll talk about, which is the site work, the concrete, and the steel, is not only will it accelerate your construction process and you started earlier, but it will save you some money on the escalation for those items. In other words, if round numbers, a commitment for the site, the concrete, and the steel is about a $10 million commitment on your behalf to start the project under a early bid package start. The escalation on that is about $250,000. So by starting those early, you're going to save $250,000 basically in escalation costs, which will help offset any other additional costs you might incur.
To give a general overview too of our process from the beginning, once we got the notice to proceed, our estimators and myself and Bill Faniff, our superintendent, jumped into the plan. So we've been doing throughout the last month or so budgeting as well as constructability review. We've sent some pre-construction RFIs through the LAMRO. We've been involved in pre-construction. We've had a kickoff meeting, a green design meeting. So the pre-construction process is moving forward. To get the initial estimate done is a big step for us. It's kind of pulling everything together. So now as we go forward, in our next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start to look at how we're going to design the bid packages most efficiently. We're doing a spec review to pick items out that we think would be most appropriate in each bid package. And as Dale mentioned too, we want to get started with the subcontractor pre-qualification relatively soon, because our initial kind of milestones that we're looking at is LAMRO's committed to completing the site work package in the middle of January, at which point we would like to have the site work contractors pre-qualified to bid on that package. The steel and the concrete packages, I believe, are committed to early February to be complete. So we'd like to have those contractors ready. The 100% documents are looking at towards the middle to the end of March, which is what I believe LAMRO is always shooting for, but we need to get the pre-qualification committee and the process going well in advance of that so that we have everything in order for the early release packages. At the same time, we want to have everything ready and have it working smoothly so that when the 100% documents come out, we'll have completed the pre-qualification process, so the moment that those documents are ready to hit the street, we can get them out to bidders instead of still being pre-qualified. We are still looking towards an early March construction start based on getting the site steel and concrete packages awarded early. We'd start steel detailing, all that. Also, another thing that's attached to there is the second page of that handout that you got. In the interview and also in our initial meetings, there's been discussion of the local outreach program. We put together a draft form that we would like to distribute within the town, and I believe it's also going to go up on the website. We have set up an email address that's dedicated to it so that people can submit their qualifications to us. We would also be accepting them in person or by hand at a place within the town. And we would also set up a fax number for people to send them in. We would then keep a running log of all the people who showed interest, which we would pass on to the subcontractors, material suppliers, et cetera, as they came on board. Also, Bill Faniff has been into the drawings and he's got an idea of a more detailed construction sequence that those people now.
It's it's a brief overview of the sequence and the logic, but we're looking to start the foundations in the gymnasium. This is to facilitate setting the long span trusses along with the rest of the structural steel. From there, we move into the south classroom wing. This is the wing that takes in the mechanical rooms and where all the services enter the building. This is facilitate starting the underground in these areas. We would finish the classroom wings, moving up to the cafeteria, kitchen, the locker rooms. And then the structural steel would start from column line 1 through 19. This would allow for the classroom wings to be finished first, and that's where most of your FF&E happens, in the classroom wings, and we can finish those spaces and release those to you earlier.
A couple other line items just to hit on within our agenda. Talked about sub-pre-qualification or release packages. Submittal exchange is on there. That's a program that we're working to implement with LAMRO and Skanska. It's an online document management system that is included in our cost, but it's a different way of doing things. So we're working on that with LAMRO and Skanska to make the paperwork more efficient. Does anyone have any questions for us?
I have a question, a little off track, but one of the things in the interviews, we were talking about maybe trade schools involvement, the kids, and maybe internships, any of the kids that are going to, say, Wentworth or somewhere like that could shadow you folks, more of a community involvement. I don't know if they said that's possible.
We could, I mean, we could use the same form that we have now and distribute it at trade schools and try and generate interest that way.
I don't know, Dr. Brunel, if that would make sense.
Yeah, certainly, APAP is probably, if you're looking to that age level, is that?
If that would,
Students can-
right, just to have more community involvement with the kids and things like that, so learning the trade, and it would be more hands-on locally.
Yeah, we would definitely be interested in that. You can also do, you can do site tours, you can organize, you know, either regular events. Another thing that we've talked about at our pre-con meetings were outreach meetings for the community, you know, whether you hold a monthly meeting for neighbors who are interested, or we would probably also hold, we identified some other stakeholders like the Masonic Center, like there's a trucking place down the street that we want to make sure we coordinate traffic with. So we'll be reaching out to people also in terms of the blasting. You know, we would likely hold a meeting before that to let people know what's going to be happening and when. So we're going to be very aware as we get going and as construction progresses about keeping the community in the loop.
Thank you.
Okay. Just, Dale, their bottom line number, the 35,302 that they have for the construction on the, on our master,
Yep.
that equates to 37? Is that,
No, that equates to 35.4.
oh, okay,
So right now, they're about 170,000 under that number.
okay. Just so everybody knows which numbers they're comparing here, because the sheets are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know on this one, as far as this sheet here, as far as alternates, this number here is a lot smaller than what we're looking at on the Fontaine sheet. We got alternates, I guess, just for the heating system or something. It shows 938, and this number is about 1,000,003.
No, but,
No?
Yep.
yeah, yep, sorry,
It's a combination of both, I believe, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, isn't it sooner the better on the alternates, as far as construction goes?
Well, I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, we've got to, I think that's part of what we talked about just a little while ago, that they got to put a timeline on when they need to make a cutoff on the alternates.
And do they have to be taken in that particular order?
No,
Okay,
it's not like
okay.
the
Yeah.
149 where you have to take it in the order. Because really, the synthetic will probably come up first. I mean, I would assume that's coming up in your site work package and,
Yeah, depending
And-
on the grading, yeah, that would be something that might be beneficial to identify early as to how much impact that would have. There's also there's some design issues that you may want to be able to take advantage of, whether or not the synthetic field is, in terms of when it does move forward.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from?
Just had one question, it's kind of a follow-up where everybody was talking about the differences. Contingencies, there's quite a discrepancy in that now. Is there something else involved with the 3 million that's on the summary sheet than the one that's here? Is that supposed to be 1.2?
No, no,
Or is that a combination of other things too?
no, the 1.2 on this sheet is your contingency, the town's contingency. On this sheet, what Fontaine handed out, 3 million, I mean, you guys can talk about design contingency and how you adjust that.
Okay.
That's under their contract.
Okay.
The design contingency is the contingency that we place because the drawings are not fully developed.
Okay.
The construction contingency is basically a contingency for us, for pluses and minuses, that as we move forward, gets swallowed up in the guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
And escalation is just, as time goes.
Okay. Thank you.
So in theory, as the drawings progress, the design contingency comes down,
Should go
construction contingency probably stay around the same, or,
Okay. Got it.
anything else? Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So So we did the next item about the ad alternates. We talked about that quite a bit already. The next item, emergency shelter provisions. We had to put this back on. Last meeting, we voted to not include it in the design. I felt we needed to put it back on because it was on the argument mostly because it was we all felt it was kind of a last minute ad, request and stuff. Unfortunately, it was pointed out, and we went back and found it in meeting minutes from back in the while we were still looking at all the 5 or 6 different options as a request from the town to make it as an alternate emergency shelter provisions into the project. So with that, I wanted to put it back out there for discussion, and then possibly if we needed Eric to re-up everybody on what we thought the estimated cost was for that.
Some of the people weren't here.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot more people than we had the last time. Eric, can you go back over that just a minute? You want to stand up at the mic? Up to the mic, thanks.
Something that was brought up in one of our early meetings with the fire department, and the request was made that the kitchen, or basically this building function as an informal emergency shelter. You have a designated emergency shelter at the high school, I believe, with an American Red Cross agreement in place. This would not have a formal agreement, but the request was made that it have the ability to provide cooking facilities in the kitchen, the ability to use showers, and along with those areas, you need lighting and you need to run the heat in those areas. So it's something that affects the size of the emergency generator by about, to add those capabilities. It's about 100 kW increase in the size of the generator. That equates, we were told, to in the area of $50,000 to $60,000. So that, the things we usually put on the emergency generator, we have our life safety side, fire alarm, lighting, that sort of thing, the things you have to have. We also typically put a number of things on what we call the standby side, and that's those are things like the circulator pumps for the HVAC, the temperature controls and building management system for the HVAC, so that you can continue, if you have a power outage, you can continue to circulate water, the building doesn't freeze up. You may not be able to maintain design temperatures, but it won't freeze either. We don't typically do all the lighting or all the power, although some buildings do. You end up with an enormous generator the size of a tractor-trailer truck. We typically put things like head-end equipment, things like the servers, the data communications equipment, the switches, security systems, video surveillance, that sort of thing. We put that on emergent or standby power. Generally, we also put the kitchen, walk-in cooler and freezer on standby, so you don't, in the event of an extended outage like we had with the ice storm, you don't lose all your food. So as Mark mentioned, that was brought up early in the process. I recorded it in the minutes, and I made the mistake of noting that we would just we would size the generator accordingly, and that I don't have the right to say that or do that, so that was my mistake. So we brought it before you as a group to decide.
Would that figure be included in MSBA funding?
Really depends on how closely MSBA looks at that. I can't say for certain. They may balk at that. You never. It's one of those things. It's tough to predict. We've had cases where we've had change orders in one instance approved for things like ceramic tile on the walls in one room, and then later on submit another change order for ceramic tiles in another room that gets rejected. So sometimes it depends on who's reviewing it and how closely it's reviewed. Maybe Dale has some insight on that. I certainly don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't go on the assumption that that would be reimbursable. So again, we're building a school here, not a emergency shelter. So I put my MSBA hat on, the answer is no.
Yep.
Obviously, if it's upsized, all the engineering, all the increase of the, the generator, switchgear, whatever, distribution panels, all that would probably be the town's cost.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
My question is, from our last meeting to this one, is there more of a need for this now than there was a month ago? I mean, that's what I'd like to know.
The reason why I put it kind of back out there was only because I think at the last meeting, we're going on the assumption that we hadn't heard of this request before.
Mine was more
So-
a need that
Well-
we have a couple buildings in place in town already
Yeah.
that handles this, and
I mean, that certainly, goes back to it. I mean, it was from the safety committee that asked the,
maybe we could trade the
request.
town a traffic study for a generator if they'd like.
My question was, is there any way we can find out from town administration if they get any sort of state money for having a shelter located in the town? It's designated as, well, whether it's an alternate or the primary, whether they get any type of grant money from maybe Homeland Security. They seem to have a lot of money.
yeah. It's a good question. Yeah. We can certainly take it back to them.
They may
I
not
think
pay
we got
for
any on the high school.
the whole thing, but it
Consideration.
couldn't hurt.
And I get, based on the same line of questioning, what are the pros and cons? And we already have a emergency shelter in high school. If we're concerned about our town, what is that going to do if it increases the shelter capacity? Does that mean that we're going to get all the towns and the runoff from Worcester into Auburn? I'd like to know like a little bit more of the pros and cons for why or why not we're spending the money on that.
Okay.
I would like to say about the shelters, I kind of agree with the idea, but at the cost and the rate they want, it's kind of hard to do, but we do have the high school. But that's like in the middle of the town. What about the people that live on this end of the town? It's a long way to go to high school in emergency conditions. But, I mean, I think like they were saying, you need to ask more questions with the town about funding and stuff like that, whether we can fund it elsewhere with home security or anything to help us out with it, because, you can't jeopardize a new school over something like this, but that's how I feel.
Eric, could we table this till the next meeting? Will that impinge on your,
Our next meeting is the 7th?
17th or 7th?
December 17th.
Oh, we're doing one in December?
Well, he
I don't
is.
think we can. We really need, we're turning over our drawings on December 13th.
You're running out of design time.
with that?
Because this side is
For pricing, and I think at that point, those are the drawings we'll be submitting to MSBA with the 60% CDs.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we, at this point in time, not designate the middle school as an emergency shelter.
I second that.
Okay. You only went through upsizing the generator. I mean, we did talk about the possibility of just doing a remote tie-in and so they could bring a mobile generator up to it, which was for a lot less.
Well,
But either way, I mean, we're still talking about
yeah.
Yeah,
same question, so.
he's got to move forward.
I think, at one point I had raised the possibility of having putting a manual transfer switch on the kitchen, so you put those things on their own panel with a transfer switch, and you have an outdoor NEMA socket so you can bring in an emergency generator on a trailer. Problem is that when you really need an emergency generator on a trailer, you won't be able to find one.
We need an emergency generator to make an emergency shelter.
I'm
That's
kind
right,
of
more
stepping
cost,
back
too.
from that recommendation. I don't think that's such a good idea.
And again, we have the high school, right? I mean,
Well, we have the high school, I think the senior center, I think is part of, not,
Yeah.
oh. Mary Ellen?
Now we're in trouble.
Just to respond to a couple questions, the town does have a shelter policy, so I don't believe that it does not currently allow for people from outside of the community to come in. It's really for Auburn residents, just to answer that question. And the comment that has been raised, I think, is in keeping with Mr. Page, is that in the proximity of the town. So I share those two pieces of information with you for your consideration.
could we get some advice from you or or
It
opinion?
almost didn't come up.
I know it's kind of,
I think it's a very hard decision because our priority is to build a school.
Right.
Having said that, we also have an obligation to work with the town to maintain safety for the community. That's secondary to the education of our students. So I am not an expert on budgets to know if there's ample money to do this, quite honestly. So I just wanted to share those two facts with you for your consideration.
If I could second.
If we
Yeah.
didn't have the emergency shelter at the high school, then,
Right, I agree.
due consideration, but there was a motion and seconded, Mr. Chairman?
Question over there.
Well,
other people want to talk besides you, Joe.
You know, I hate to vote on this right now without getting some more
Exactly.
information. My questions are, for a town this size, are we obligated to have so much shelter space to have so many people that we can put in a shelter in an emergency? Do we meet those obligations now? Are we, are we right at that point where we could actually use more space? Hopefully we never have to use it, but the question is, this is a perfect building to have that type of occupancy if it's needed, because what else is there in the city to use, the town to use?
We had severe storms, I think it was 2 years ago, when the high school was open for shelter for people, and it was hardly used. Very, very few people that took advantage of, and they were out for days without power and everything else.
Currently,
My
if I'm not
question is-
mistaken, Dr. Brunel, the middle school is designated, the current middle school at Swanson Road is designated as an alternate, yeah.
Yeah, it'd never be upgraded a little bit.
Yeah.
I know what Mr. Grossman is saying, but if you're going to save one life, it's meaningful, in my opinion.
I just don't know if there's actual standards. It's one of those things where, is there some sort of guideline for towns, cities to have so much, the ability to have so many people in a shelter? Is there a regulation? I mean, who knows? They have regulations for everything else. Maybe there is something out there.
There's a lot of experience out there in the audience. I don't know if anyone can answer that question. Dale?
Damn.
What I would recommend, stay with the design as it is now. If we're going to increase a generator transfer switch, I know Eric will probably disagree with this, but down the road, we can maybe submit a change order or redesign something. Again, this will be your cost, but we can once we get an electrician on board, we can issue some bulletin saying, increase the whatever the infrastructure's requirement. We gotta obviously time it, but for this, where we're at this point in time, because we do have a submission going into the MSBA, and we can, again, through their electrical engineer, again, this will be all additional services, I'm sure, but down the road, if this comes up, or if the town makes the decision, I would recommend approach it at that time.
Mr. Chairman?
That's fine. I mean, we could certainly ask for, I don't know, is it the fire department? Who heads up the safety committee, Eric?
Emergency
You met with?
management.
The safety advisory?
Yeah.
I went through Joe Fahey. I worked with Joe and police and fire representatives.
Maybe the town
Safety
manager.
advisory team, I think just probably go through the emergency and management.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we could always invite somebody from that to the next meeting if we wanted to. If we want to pursue it any further, I don't know, just throwing it back out there because
Let's move forward.
Motion.
Is it going to impact the process if we do wait a month and get more information?
He doesn't want, he can't wait. We've got to get going, the contractor was chomping at the bit.
Well, as,
Mr. Chairman, I think we can vote on this. The only other motion that I'd like to make in addition to this is that we ask town administration, ask emergency management if they feel that this is something that is, I know it's a school building, but it still affects the whole town.
Yep.
That maybe we can get some input from them. Maybe there is a need for it, who knows? I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no. But I think if it's easy just to upgrade the generator later in the process, then we can vote on this now and then get information as time goes on, so we don't hold them up.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just end this, I guess, quickly, but can we make a vote on it contingent on if it's a conflict with state or federal regulations on the capacity? Other than that, we go forward with our vote.
well, I mean, I think we're already there. I forget what the motion was now that you made. Wait,
With the amendment that just suggested.
I mean.
A motion that we, at this point in time, proceed as planned without this being designated an emergency shelter. And,
Second it.
no,
With their contingency, it's not in conflict with any state or federal regulations on capacity.
on capacity.
I agree.
That's my
Okay.
motion, Mr. Chairman.
a second?
And what was that?
Superintendent will tell you later.
Okay. She will, too.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That's a vote. All right.
She'll have an email to you by the time you get home.
Emergency-related question?
Sure.
Just have student evacuation and lockdown protocols been taken into account in the design already?
They have.
Okay, great.
We've worked closely with the Safety Advisory Committee. One of the things we did was actually revise the numbering of all the rooms and entrances and doors based on their standard system for town buildings. We'll be having a secondary signage system at 12 inches above the floor so that in the event of smoke,
Yep.
those will be visible. We've talked about the lockdown procedures. We've actually talked about the possibility of right now we have two separate analog systems, one for PA and one for clocks, and we've talked about combining those with a system that goes over the Ethernet cabling and has capability for sending visual messages, to the classrooms, and that can be tied into security, so.
Will any phone be able to page the whole building? Or only certain phones?
I believe they will have that capability with the proper programming.
Okay. Are there external staging areas identified for evacuation protocols?
We have not identified any specific areas.
But I think that would come with,
We actually, for all our school initiatives, we have staging areas for a variety of different purposes, so we've not yet specifically identified here, but those would be.
okay. Next item, groundbreaking ceremony. Gonna be starting some site work sometime in March. Nice, good time to be out there throwing a couple shovel loads of dirt and having everybody stand around out in the cold. We can have it sooner than later. We can, so I think part of Dale's doing it. We have to invite MSBA, so we have to kind of
The people that are
forecast
paying
down.
for this, for part of it, yeah, basically the process is if you're gonna have it this year or in March when Fontaine has the trucks out there, we have to notify through the MSBA. Treasurer Grossman will come, the director of MSBA, Jack McCarthy, state representative, so it is a coordinated effort, so whenever you decide to have it, we'll basically coordinate and we gotta make sure they're available. And again, a lot of towns, they do all different things from bands to cheerleading to, they have taste of the local businesses there, restaurants, so there's a lot of things you can do. And it really depends on when that date is. If you wanna do it this year, you can, but, we'd have to have Fontaine bring in a truckload of dirt or something. Or you can wait, so it's a decision for somebody to make.
Do you want a motion?
Do you have any preferences in the school-wise? I mean, I know it's getting a little tight to try to schedule something right now.
It is, I mean, we've been fortunate with weather. I just am also looking for the safety for everybody, so once they start actual digging and construction out there in March, I mean, would it be okay for us to have it in April or May? Okay, even though they've already broken ground, we'll do it after, okay.
Yeah, I mean, by April, we're still just moving earth and stuff, right? We're not,
Okay,
maybe some concrete or something like that, but you're not really standing steel or anything of it.
okay.
So we could do it that way in March to April time. We want to start looking at that? Okay. We can start checking calendars with the state. All right, almost there, guys.
He looks at you.
Invoices. That's the next agenda item.
Invoice over here.
forgot about the money.
Yeah, the money.
I missed the invoice.
Mr. Chairman, we have already approved 1632.96. Is that correct?
Yes.
Therefore, that gets deducted from the 119,687.96 of Lammer and Pagano's invoice. Correct?
That would be correct.
So therefore, their invoice now reads 118,055 as a separate motion. Right, Eric?
You're on top of it. The peer review and the peer review and the cost for the drawings are in that number.
So my motion is to approve the invoice of $118,055 to Lammer and Pagano, invoice 1207-1310 dated 10/31/13.
Second.
In the amount of,
Oh, I did, I said that at first, in the amount of $118,055.
okay.
Invoice number?
You-
Invoice number?
You did read it, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a second?
Second.
Any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion that we approve Skanska invoice number 1311838-PDS-11942-20 dated 11/5/13 in the amount of $38,126.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Let's vote. I think that's it. So, next meeting, December 17th at 7 o'clock here,
7 PM.
7 PM. And then there'll be another meeting on January 7th of the new year, 7 PM here.
That'd be coffee next time.
There'll be notices and information passed out prior to that for both of those. So watch out for the notices of that so you can get the information. Any other items of people want to bring up right now? Or other item?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay.